Yo, what up, though? The Minnesota Vikings did it, y'all. They took care of business against the Seattle Seahawks, man. The final score was 27-24, man. And the Minnesota Vikings is right there for the number one seed in the NFC. We all seen the Eagles lose to the Commanders today. That was good for the Minnesota Vikings. The Eagles now have 3 losses on their record, and they are not, I don't think, competing for the number one seed no more. The Detroit Lions took care of business against Chicago Bears, and the Vikings took care of business against the Seattle Seahawks on the road. This was a big game for the Minnesota Vikings, y'all. And Sam Darnold led the Minnesota Vikings on the late fourth quarter with a touchdown pass to Justin Jefferson, man, that sealed the game. That gave a 27-24 lead over the Seahawks, and the rest was history. Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks had a chance to tie the game up or win the game, but the Minnesota Vikings defense do what they do best at the end of the game. They had an interception, man. But I didn't like what I seen from the Minnesota Vikings in the late second quarter going into halftime. When it was a minute and 50 seconds left, the Minnesota Vikings threw the ball on all 3 downs, gave the ball back to Seattle with a lot of time on the clock, and Seattle Seahawks still had all 3 of their timeouts. I feel like the Minnesota Vikings should have ran the ball on 1 or 2 of them down and forced Seattle Seahawks to use their timeout, but Seattle scored before halftime. That's another reason why the game was close, because Seattle, to me, shouldn't have got that touchdown before halftime, man. But either way it go, Sam Darnold played good today. He had 3 touchdown passes, no INTs against Seattle Seahawks defense. And I like the Seattle Seahawks defense. But their defense ain't like that, but their defense is okay. But Sam played good on the road in the rain. Cause just to think about the weather condition, he was throwing the ball, man. He had 246 passing yards, man. We also ran for 81 rushing yards, man. I feel like the Minnesota Vikings should have ran the football more, especially with Aaron Jones and Cam Akers. Cam Akers only had 1 carry. Aaron Jones only had 18 carries. Like, I feel like Aaron Jones should have had at least 22 carries, and Cam Akers should have had at least 5 or 6. I feel like we need to run the football a little bit more. And Justin Jefferson, JJ, oh boy, did he have a day against that secondary, y'all. JJ went off, man. He had 144 receiving yards, 10 reception, and he had 2 touchdowns. Jordan Addison, he also found the end zone, and he had 35 receiving yards on 5 catches, man. The Minnesota Vikings is a dangerous team in the NFC, man. The Minnesota Vikings can probably get that number one seed, but we still got to take care of business, man. We got the Green Bay Packers coming up. That right there going to be a tough game, man. But the Vikings are at home against the Green Bay Packers, man. But the Vikings showed me a lot today against the Seattle Seahawks, man. Seattle Seahawks have a good offense. Kenneth Walker, DK, Jigma Smith, them all good players, man. Jigma Smith, he had 95 receiving yards, man, with a touchdown. And DK also had a touchdown. And Jigma Smith had 95 receiving yards. DK ain't had that many receiving yards, only 57, but he made a lot of clutch catches against the Minnesota Vikings, man. And the running game didn't really do too much against the Minnesota Vikings for real. They only ran the ball for 59 rushing yards. Kenneth Walker only had one. I mean, he only had 31 rushing yards. So the Vikings did good in that aspect against Seattle Seahawks. We didn't get a lot of sacks on Geno Smith, but the Minnesota Vikings did pressure Geno a lot of times, and he got hit a few times, man. Dallas Turner had a big interception against Geno Smith in the first half of this football game, man. And the Vikings defense closed the game off with another interception on Geno Smith, man. The Minnesota Vikings are playing good football right now, man. I just feel like the Minnesota Vikings offense needs to score more points against teams, man. Like, we kept the Seattle Seahawks around too damn long in this football game. Either we need field goals or a touchdown, or we need to keep the drives going. We can't be going 3 and out after our defense just got off the field or our defense had got a turnover, man. But either way, though, it's things we can work on, especially on the Minnesota Vikings offense side of things. But the Vikings took care of business, man, and we got the Green Bay Packers coming up, man. We take care of business against the Packers, like I feel like the Minnesota Vikings should, because the Packers, I feel like, is really not that good of a football team, especially passing the football against good teams. That's just me. And week 18 gonna come down to that number one seed and who gonna be the crown of the NFC North, man. But first, we gotta take care of business against the Green Bay Packers this upcoming Sunday, man. But overall, though, the Minnesota Vikings play good, man. Ivan Pace should be back, so we should have people back on defense Redman should be back. So the Minnesota Vikings play good. Y'all let me know in the comment section below, man. How y'all feeling right now about that number 1 seed or that spot for the NFC North crown?